name is Denise Prentice. I'm a content marketer and I specialise in helping business owners be heard. Anxiety, depression and addictions are the most common mental health problems. They are often a reaction to a difficult life event such as bereavement or change of circumstances, but they can also be caused by work-related issues that lead to poor employee mental health and, in worst-case scenarios, suicide. Globally, organisations and communities around the world come together to raise awareness of how they can create a work environment where employee well-being thrives. With me I have Tony J. Salimi, an internationally renowned TEDx speaker, human behaviour specialist and award-winning author and filmmaker who specialises in assisting people in breaking through addictions, perceived fears and limitations, awakening leadership, productivity and maximising business potential. Tony, as someone who went from living homeless, graduating from one of the top 5 UK engineering universities, successfully climbing the corporate ladder and managing £1 billion technology programs, and now travelling the world as an expert who advises global CEOs of some of the most successful corporations, what are some of the issues that you observe that are at the root cause of poor employee mental health, increased absenteeism, burnout, depression, low productivity, stress, and ultimately to suicide?
There are many issues that companies globally face that lead to all of those things that companies experience globally, but also individuals within the company, especially when it comes to the effect it has on mental health and the psychology of employees. And I approach this same way as that I would approach healing the body. And if organizations were to see employee well-being as a whole system and start from the head, because there's that old metaphor when the head of the fish is smelly, the entire fish can be poisonous.
Absolutely.
So if we were to approach the same way, addressing mental health that lead to poor productivity, to employee absenteeism, low profits and conflicts and all sorts of stuff, we really need to start looking at the kind of managerial styles and leadership styles that companies nowadays have, because employees' psychology has been upgraded by introduction of technology. Nowadays people can go out there and see what it is to work in a great healthy environment and what it is to work somewhere where it's toxic. So now managers and leaders are having to face with more of a conscious employees. No matter what I would say the organizational structure employee would belong, whether it's somebody who works as a cleaner, somebody who works on a floor as a manager, somebody who works as an engineer, somebody who works offshore, it does not matter. Employees nowadays have a tool where they can go and compare themselves. So really the first thing is some of the senior management have this almost like a like it or lamp it attitude, which also then it's caused by them running this old psychology of authoritative leadership style.
Sure.
And then senior management people who are not trained how to deal with the employee psychology, emotional intelligence, and things that can help employees to address those issues in themselves first and foremost. The second part is I've seen how with development of technology, we also created this complex management structures and systems and procedures and policies. Not only in big companies, I see that also in NHS, I see those with clients who work in oil and gas industry, I see this with clients with big technology companies, where now employees spend more and more time dealing with the admin side of things instead of doing their work. And majority of these people find it extremely overwhelming to actually deal with those complex things when they ask to perform a simple task. So for instance, you might have 200 health and safety policies that employees not going to think in that moment, what are those 200 things, which causes additional stress, fear, and then it leads up to that kind of blame culture in the corporation, which again creates a toxic environment for employees to really do something effectively, efficiently, and having some form of self-directing attitude and self-inspiring attitude when they do complex or simple jobs. So a lot of the complex structure put in place are almost like fear-based complex structures, rather than sort of educating the employees how to avoid those things without creating a volume of paperwork that they need to adhere to. And the other one is basically wherever I travel globally, I see employees being overworked like a horse. And the common complaint, whether I'm speaking somewhere or I'm training somewhere or I'm giving a workshop, the common complaint is they feel like they are being worked like animals and treated like animals. And you know what? Nobody likes to be treated like that. Even in today's world, we have like organizations who are actually taking care of animals. So we're taking care of animals, and a lot of companies out there, they still haven't changed their attitude towards the employees. In a way, injecting a bit of love. Just the way we care for animals, we care for our people, we care for our parents, our children. I think employees have this lack of awareness that they need to bring and inject more love in their employee. And the common one which I've observed since 2009, frankly, since this massive financial collapse that we happened, and especially now through Brexit going, is the uncertainty. And basically people do not feel they have a job security. And you know, every person who goes to work, they go to work because they want to pay their bills. They want to take care of the daily things that they worry about financially. And if you go somewhere to work knowing that every day you don't know where you're going to have a job, you're not going to be inspired. Your psychology is not going to be ready for the kind of challenges you may have on that day.
Absolutely, it's in a place of fear.
In a place of fear. And this is something I really see globally. And a lot of organizations, they haven't really hired the right people to really, who are expert in this. I spent 30 years dealing with psychology and human behavior. So majority of the companies, they try to cut down on costs right now, but to create this long-term pain.
Sure.
Instead of hiring experts and professionals who can come in and really be an extra pair of eyes, not taking away the responsibility of their own existing staff, but perhaps giving them additional tools and training.
Sure.
And the other one is we're talking about unfair treatment, and this can come back from many reasons, where people feel like they don't have lack of equal opportunities. We're talking about diversity in here. We're talking about people who have great skills, but they feel like they are in a boring job and there is no movement within the job. And a lot of people talk about diversity, but if you go, diversity does not only mean in color, does not mean in religion, does not mean in creed. Diversity also means diversity in thinking.
Absolutely, different thinking styles.
Different thinking styles, but also different employees who have different challenges in their own environment. And work environment is something where we spend 8 to 10, 12 hours a day. And if we don't really have trained managers and trained leaders who can almost use this diversity in a way that increases productivity, performance, and profits, ultimately profits for the shareholders, it's all gone to waste. And lastly, I will say about how important it is not to have a bullying style, which can come out maybe consciously or unconsciously from an individual when people are not aware of their own behaviors and how to use their own emotional intelligence at work to be able to effectively communicate in a way that people at workplace are productive and are inspired.
Absolutely, and you've touched on a whole range of very, very important issues there, and it seems to come around to various themes such as leadership. So it's sort of circling back on your ideas about leadership style. So how would you define the old paradigm, and what does it need to become in order to be viewed as a new form of leadership?
We could have a long interview in here, but
Yes.
in a simple words, in the old paradigm we had this top-down leadership. We're meaning top people will have an idea and they say this is what you need to implement, whether you like it or not. But in the new paradigm, leaders are almost at the back and activate leadership in every single employee within the company. And to activate that, leaders must have the skills required for you to be able to understand the psychology, emotional intelligence, and how that impacts people's daily behaviors.
Sure.
But also being able to see not only energetically, and being able to hear not only with your ears, but with your entire being, what is the overall organizational culture And what is your role as a leader to be able to transform that and create a nurturing and a healthy environment where employees tell how inspired they are to work for your company.
Absolutely.
So it's more of a step back, but activate leadership in every employee for them to go forward. That's for me what a great leadership looks like in 21st century.
Fantastic. And now you mentioned earlier about bully boy tactics from various team members and embedded in certain cultures. That does ring very, very well true with me, as I have a background in private equity and was often the only woman in the room. And it seemed that bullying seemed to be the predominant way of communicating. So can you sort of expand more on whether there are particular industries where this actually occurs and whether there are industries where this doesn't occur?
Yes, you're quite right actually, because many people don't think about this, especially if you are at the receiving end. Because some industries are more labor intensive, and naturally majority of the industries focus for the labor intensive jobs to be men. But I've come across many powerful women
Powerful. That's a good way to put it.
who basically also can do labor intensive work, but I
Yes.
think needs to be more of a balance around that. But what I see is, I will mention about 3 of the things that most people lead to bullying, because most people think bullying is something like physical. Okay? And majority of people don't really pay attention to bullying that comes from emotional manipulation.
And absolutely psychological bullying.
And
can often be
psychological
more
more powerful. As I said, I mean, there's a tendency around victims of physical abuse that basically they come to realization that the emotional abuse was more powerful than the physical abuse. And this is the same thing in the work environment, where basically people feel abused and bullied emotionally. I have clients who come to me with this very stressful energy just leaving work, where basically even they send an email, for instance, and they get ignored.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
And you even see the person reading the email, and they even see you and they don't say anything. So this is in a form, a way of silent bullying, where basically, a manager could just simply say, I acknowledge your email, I'm on the way to a meeting, but let's talk about it tomorrow. Because a human being can understand when you acknowledge them. And this is one of the principles I teach within the methodology that I developed. Because if we want to change behaviors, we must learn to understand what are the values of the person we are communicating with.
Absolutely.
And most people tend to project their own values on others. And for me, a great leadership, touching on back on the leadership, is being able to understand the values that the person is communicating to you, that you need to almost match with one another. So you can be heard. But also bullying can be like ignoring the person.
Absolutely. Or gaslighting.
Or gaslighting.
Yes.
So there are many forms of bullying. And usually when I spend a day having an immersion day with organizations, I will look straight away by what people speak, the language that they speak, what are the key problems within the organization, and what is it that they want to outcome. I will identify the kind of bullying culture that exists, that basically sometimes is invisible to the people being in the organization because they're used to that.
Absolutely.
And unless we have a new awareness, we will not know what to change.
And I guess also that means awareness of your own communication style as
Yes,
well.
yes. It's basically, I believe, our own communication style. I mean, not only communication style, but also certain behaviors. Certain movements in the body can send the wrong signals. And there's a whole range of education out there about body language. Then there's a whole communication about smile language.
Yes, which I do a lot.
So all of those things, tonality, for instance, the way we communicate, the way we speak, the way we ask a question, can make a difference in somebody's life. But also sometimes on a passing by, we might be at the coffee station and we say things that another employee might be very hurt. And we're not might even aware. We might even be in that moment saying a joke, but that person doesn't know the context. So this is sometimes when I dissolve conflicts in the company, when I start getting the context outside of what they perceived it, suddenly they realize that it didn't apply to them. So those are some of the things.
It's fantastic, and it just signifies just how important the issue of awareness actually is.
Yes.
And this is just something to be aware of. So according to research published by the Centre of Mental Health, poor mental health problems in the UK workforce cost employers almost 35 billion last year. What are some of the strategies you've taught your clients that companies can adopt to successfully implement mental health in the workplace?
There are many, but for today I will share just three of them. And I always start with this word called clarity. Okay, clarity of thought, clarity of mind, clarity of behaviors, clarity of company vision, and clarity of where the company is heading, what is the employee vision, what is the client vision, and what is the vision of the social impact they want to make. Most companies don't have this in place properly. And when you don't have clarity of vision that unifies everybody in one powerful ideology, people tend to assume things, and then turns into a massive problem that costs millions, if not billions of pounds. So really, I would say that is the number one that I've helped most of my clients, corporate clients, to really get clear of what is their vision for the future. Because as human beings, we want to know where to go. You don't go to the airport without booking a flight, without knowing what holiday to go to. It's the same in the company. I mentioned a lot of metaphors and people laugh, saying, oh my God, this is common sense. The second one is, I would say, take a 360-degree approach to addressing mental health in your company. And what I've seen most companies do is they think that by creating an online course, they will address that. And a lot of companies trying to save cost by creating a digital module or something, they think that those things will disappear. In fact, it fuels more aggression, more resentments. And why? Because I always say books, training, all of that, which is self-learning, it's about 10% of the equation.
And it's also putting the onus on the employee to do the work.
It's almost like a blame culture.
Yes.
Blame solution again. And one of the biggest things when I ask leaders and people who employ things like this, I would say to them, okay, that's great, fantastic tool to have. However, if the tool is not, I would say, taught in a way that people can extract information out of that and being able to apply them and instill a behavior, you can have the tool. And most organizations have proven, they have clear, I would say, percentages and records how little those tools are being used. Why? Because it's a one-way information. You don't get a feedback mechanism with an online training program. But having an online training program that you can take a module and have experts within your company, or bring experts or bring speakers who are trained in listening properly and addressing employee behaviors, addressing low productivity, addressing, I would say, communication skills, addressing language skills, addressing training things, and then listen to the employees. That's a power, which means combination of those things. But also looking at, like some organizations give benefits for people who have daily training, for instance, and they partner up with other companies who provide health benefits for insurance purposes. So some companies bring yoga teachers in the morning to teach half an hour yoga teachers. One of the big companies in the world, which I really love when it comes to really bringing well-being together, is Mindvalley. And the founder, Vishan, has basically created this amazing environment in which his employees can thrive, can take sleeping breaks, can take holidays whenever they need to for their family. So he's, I would say, taking care of employees' needs.
More integrated approach.
More integrated approach, because in today's world, companies expect you to work everywhere, but they don't expect you to take time whenever you want. So I think creating this balance in there, it's so unique to have this integrated approach where we have different flavors for different people, different strokes for different looks.
And like you're talking about diversity and
yes.
taking that into account, that people are having different obligations in their lives. And
Correct.
Absolutely.
So we're moving into a 21st century where all of those things leaders need to take into account. And the third one, it's, I would say, the key to this one. It's having people who can help them upgrade the collective psychology of the employee, of the organization, and what they need to achieve. With that, one of the biggest things that I work with people, it's being able to have a value alignment with the vision, with the first part. Because most people have those things and they put the values, but if you ask the employees will be straight away telling you they're not upholding that value. It's only on a piece of paper. So there's this discrepancy between what you stand for to what actually happens on the floor within your company or with your customers or with the impact you want to make globally.
That's often the case. That it must be a very courageous sort of decision for a company to admit, because it's almost making that admission that they are not communicating well with their employees, or they're not, because sort of offering that 360 approach that you're actually talking about. So how do you convince an employer to actually step forward and make that decision? Because it's almost like they're having to self-identify that we're not actually succeeding in this.
Some of the recent research is yearly now not addressing employee mental health costs the UK economy over £36 billion. And when companies tell other people, or they justify self-justification that we don't have the money, pretty much they're not looking at the whole picture, and they're not looking at the long-term pain. They're focused on short-term gain. And often that, not only in the company level, but also at our personal level, when we focus on a short-term gain, we're going to be experiencing the pain for a long time.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks very much, Tony. With me, I also have Paul McMonagle, piping supervisor for a major oil, and gas services company. Paul, what are some of the problems you experienced in your work career that led you to a point of crisis that impacted your mental health?
For myself, it's working in the oil and gas industry and the stigma attached to talking about mental health. I'd seen people who were bullied for mental health, they were got rid of, and I thought that will happen to me. And the crisis point for me was I almost leapt from a structure I was working on to my death because I felt so alone.
Goodness me. And so, this is a major sort of crisis for you. So what actions did you take to address the issues that you were having at that stage?
So the action I took at that stage was, it was by pure chance, really. I was on Facebook one night and I seen this book, which is A Path to Wisdom, which is written by Tony J. Salimi, and I just simply liked the post. Within a couple of hours, the author contacted me with a personal message, which really took me aback, but we spoke to each other continually every day for 6 months. And then I decided to meet Tony for what's called a clarity consultation in London, and that consultation just totally blew my mind and transformed how I actually thought about mental health.
And so when you went for that initial session, was there a particular problem that you were looking to solve?
Yeah, so I had several problems. My problems were I was suffering from epilepsy, I had several addictions. I was addicted to cocaine, I was an alcoholic, I was a smoker. I was also suffering from severe loneliness. Because of my mental health problems, I'd shut myself off from the outside world. I was an introvert, and I was really feeling shame about everything in my life. And the main thing was I just wanted to be a better person and a better employee.
Thank you. And I mean, there are many coaches and mentors in the world, so what made you go for Tony in particular?
Practically because I tried the rest. But I worked with different experts. I'd been through the NHS system for 20 years with various psychologists and psychiatrists. I'd went to Harley Street and various other mentors and coaches, especially within the NLP coaching. But what was different about Tony was his ability to really listen to me. The first time I met him, I'd never felt so listened to in my whole life, and a lot of people don't have that. And he creates a safe space where you can communicate your truth, but he's also very challenging in his ways. But that made me self-reflect on. Mainly on the painful events I had caused, that were being caused in my life by living my life through a one-sided illusion.
Okay, and you went through the Vital Planning for Elevated Living 5-day programme. So how did that change your life, and how can it benefit other high achievers and people who want to seek accelerated learning?
Yeah, Vital Planning's amazing, but it helped me upgrade my psychology, understand the key triggers to my OCD, what can set off my OCD behaviours. It cured me of epilepsy, which is unbelievable because I'd been told I had incurable epilepsy.
How long had you actually struggled with epilepsy?
For about 18 years.
Goodness.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it taught me how to dissolve emotions. It kept me imprisoned in the illusion created by my fears. but also gave me a clear plan for the life I know I would like to live and I would love to live, and really the dreams I want to achieve, because with vital planning you write everything down, and when you write it down you get the vision.
This is wonderful. And I can feel it's lovely hearing you speak, even though you're speaking about very, very personal and difficult sort of challenges in your life. You speak with a great deal of openness. It's something that you've owned. Is that the case?
Yeah, when I was going through all these challenges before I met Tony, I was extremely introverted. I couldn't speak to people, and the first thing Tony actually picked up on with me was when I spoke to people, I looked at the floor. And when I first met him, he kept saying to me, you have to look up and speak to me. I had no eye contact with people at all. But yeah, I've pretty much owned all my illnesses now.
Thank you. Thanks so much, and thanks for your time. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, it's an absolute privilege to have another of Tony's clients, and this is Joel van der Molen, and he's a CEO of a successful telecommunications company, and he was so inspired by his business coaching journey with Tony that he put his life of coaching, his transformational journey, in a documentary called Living My Illusion, which is a wonderful award-winning documentary which is mentioned in this film magazine here. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. That's you, I believe, at the front there.
Indeed, yes.
Looking incredibly handsome.
Oh, you're very kind.
Yes.
I like you.
It's true. I like you too. Wonderful. Now, this Living My Illusion has won more than 10 international awards. So, Joel, what were you seeking to resolve when you first hired Tony as your coach?
Well, originally it started the whole journey as business mentoring. Mm-hmm. So I became aware that it's important to have that person from the outside looking in. And so certainly from a business perspective, the idea originally was to grow the business 10 times what it was. But this very quickly, and I became aware that this was more of a it wasn't, the problems that were happening weren't necessarily by working on the business, but they were actually problems within myself. So I quickly became very aware that this was what was happening, and so it turned into a very personal journey of inner knowing to address the lies that we don't really want to address. And so suddenly I became very aware of all of the feelings and the emotions that I was going through, and it literally helped me to transform from inside out. And that was extremely powerful, and I just was so truly inspired by this work that I wanted to share it with the world. I think it's a natural thing that us humans like to do, that when you find something that really truly helps you, you want to share it. And so one thing I loved was using my creative talents, and I wanted to record the audiobook of A Path to Wisdom, which is my a favourite book ever. Fantastic. I mean, I've read a lot of personal development books, and I was going through that, and but this really, every single paragraph, every word, it really spoke to my entire being. The energy that it's written with, it's like you wrote it, but Tony's done all the work, and so I've got proof that I actually read it, because I've got it all on record, and now we've got a very popular audiobook out there on iTunes and Amazon, so I'm very delighted with that. That led on to the next stage of, again, this wanting to share this important message that certainly I believe with the world. And it led to the creation of Living My Illusion, which is the multi-award winning documentary, where I've literally just opened up and bared my whole life on camera, and I think you've seen.
Yes, I saw this, and that I really admired the fact that you were willing to be so open. And this is interesting. Going back to when you said your original point of entry here, where you approached Tony, or you sensed that there was an issue with the bottom line of your business as a CEO. What was the sort of transition then for you personally that made you have the courage to say, actually, this is not just about the bottom line. This is about something that is personal, something within me. This is something that perhaps a lot of CEOs perhaps wouldn't admit for purely egoic reasons.
Correct. Yeah, and I would have been there, and 3 years ago we would have a very different conversation. But when you are truly inspired by the work, and you can't wait to learn more, then you know within you that there's something bigger here. There's something more important. So you help me on every single level within the business to begin with, when it comes to communication. So you read an email from me now. I don't know if I've sent you any emails, but it's completely different, the language, and it was dealing with customer problems. In business, we are problem solvers. So the communication power that this gave me, as well as being able to not only understand the emotions and what was going on with inside me whenever there was a problem, but also be able to help staff, to help them enjoy their work, so that they come to work inspired and share the vision. From a communication point of view, he completely rewired my thinking. And it was all those thoughts, the 70 to 100,000 thoughts that we have a day, 90% of them negative, and the default response is negative. He helped me be able to look at any situation and immediately, instead of looking at the fear, look at the positive and recognize that out of any single problem there is another side. And this really transformed the business from inside out. The whole communication material, the website, the marketing material, the staff, the way the staff were learning from me as I was passing on what I was doing. And we had our most successful year ever.
That's wonderful.
And helped people to be inspired and share the vision and the direction of where the company was going. So yes, it was worthwhile that I thought this has got to go on film. And I didn't care, because you want to share that story. There was things that I was being able to speak about in a session that I never would even really speak to myself about. Not even to really acknowledge that. And that gave me maybe the mask, or being able to take off the masks that we all wear. Because we all wear a mask when we're with our friends, with our family, when we meet new people in social situations, in working environments. It's very, people are very formal, they're never themselves. But we're really just children inside this adult body and we think we should behave like an adult. When really we're just all children inside. And this really inspired me to want to share my story and what I was learning, regardless of what people would think.
Wonderful. Now, you mentioned that you were so sort of enamoured with this book that you became the author.
Well, not really the author. I can't claim that. I could, but he'll get a bit upset.
Exactly, the audiobook author. I guess I mean, or the
narrator. My book's to come.
The narrator. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. So millions of people have benefited from reading Tony's multi-award-winning book. So, there's also loneliness as well as their path to wisdom. So, what was your experience, and why would you recommend these books to other people?
Well, okay, that's simple, and I worked it out the other day, because I was reading #loneliness for the second or third time. Now, the thing is that I read a number of books. I've got a number of books by my bedside, when I'm reading, and I go through a lot. But when you just do this test. You read one book, put it down, and then pick up A Path to Wisdom or #loneliness, and your whole energy and your whole being just shifts. And I noticed this, because it's written by, I don't know what he's doing, but it really, I noticed that difference. When you read it, when I was reading it, I felt so much more relaxed. I felt so much more relaxed, and you really got into it a lot more. And that's why he quickly became my favourite author. Because I hadn't read, even when you read the most intelligent stuff and the best books, when you go and read that, it's just written with this different energy. It's written with a love and care for the reader. And that comes across on every page.
Now, I understand that when the intention is behind it, often you'll have people who write things to sound clever or to kind of, put forward a very convoluted argument, and there's actually not the substance behind it, but the substance here is really in the intention.
It is, and I'm on page 109. Let me see. Yes. Here we go.
Yes.
So as I write this paragraph, I'm on the beautiful island of Menorca and business coaching my client Joel. Many of our coaching sessions are done on the beach or walking around the cliffs of Playas de Fornells. After every session, he walks away with the clarity required to see how each business issue he hired me to resolve is a reflection of what's going on in his inner world. So, as we were talking about, it became all about inside of me, and they were the blocks.
Yes.
It wasn't outside. It wasn't outside that was causing what was causing the stunting the growth. It was everything inside. And then he started working with my wife and helping my family as well. So yeah, there's a lot in that documentary, and it's why it's won major awards, because it just resonates with every human heart.
No, it's a very powerful documentary because it is so heartfelt. There's no sort of pretense to it. It's just simply you guys opening up, and actually it touches on a universality within us. It's that's the thing. So no,
Yeah,
absolutely wonderful.
And I look forward to it being released. And sharing it with the world. I do believe there's a lot of people out there who suffer in silence, afraid to speak on their truth, or afraid to make that personal investment for the fear of what other people might think of them. And as I say, the opening line of the film is nearly every decision that people make is based on what other people will think of them.
Absolutely. And I guess, traditionally, as a woman, I think women are often more concerned about what people think about them. We're often raised to be pliable and pleasant and sort of make sure that we're pleasing people and sort of putting ourselves last. And, did you find that in the workplace, for example, there was an issue with the women and dealing with women as opposed to the men? Was that an issue for you as a CEO?
Yeah, you got me there. From a woman's perspective, how I was seeing that in the workplace, by only doing the work on myself, I could inspire others. And actually, one of the girls that I did work with, and she was in Living My Illusion, and she said how amazing it was to work with somebody like me, which was wonderful to hear, because I helped her to be able to come out of her shell. And when you give that kind of love and encouragement, you get the best from people. You really do. Where do you want to work? Do you want to work in an environment where you don't feel that you feel you're looked over, or do you want to? I understood that I want to make people feel special, to feel a part of the team, but also that to help them become aware of the genius that they actually have, and every single person does.
Yes, absolutely, to occupy your own space.
Yeah,
yes.
And this was what certainly helped from the corporate perspective, men and women, both. The more you work on yourself, the more of an inspiration you are for others, and that's not selfish.
It kind of gives permission.
You become the inspiration. I mean, it's not saying, I'll look after you if you look after me. It's I'll look after me if you would please look after you for me.
And people see that, and they're able then to step into that space themselves. It's almost as if it's, as you say, it inspires.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does. It really does. So yeah, it completely transformed the business life that we were experiencing.
Wonderful.
And you get a lot more done. But because you want to.
Absolutely.
And you want to be able to help other people when you can understand and see things that way. And that's what it helped me on many levels, and it's even in the documentary, and so is my cat in the documentary.
That's fantastic. What sort of role does your cat play in the documentary?
Well, she's like cat coach.
Right.
So but she was there sitting on my lap because the cat came to the office.
There you go. It was meant
so
to be.
it was very relaxed atmosphere. It became a very relaxed atmosphere.
Wonderful.
As well as getting work done as well.
Wonderful. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Todor Chestaminov, who is an NHS cardiologist, and he's with me here today to talk about just the issues of the heart and the emotions that are dealt with in terms of mental health issues in the workplace, and also hopefully some insights of your workplace and how mental health issues are dealt with there.
Well, when it comes to emotional intelligence and emotional well-being, heart and emotional well-being, especially cardiovascular system and emotional well-being, they are inextricably linked in many ways, in multiple ways. Being out of your comfort zone, or being in emotional imbalance or emotional insufficient, sometimes can bring about a lot of consequences in a long or short term. It depends how frequent and how strong emotional imbalance is. Let's say if you are working under pressure, or let's say if you're working under hostile working environment, or if you experience some kind of emotional turmoil, this is like flight and fight mode, as we are saying. It's a very, very well-known adaptable syndrome of Hans-Selye, which is really, really well-known in the medical field in our science, which can trigger a lot of hormones and substances within our bodies. And within that moment, it's like less than a couple of minutes can cause hormonal neurohormonal disbalance, especially dopamine, serotonin, and adrenaline and cortisol hormone disbalance.
So Tony teaches vital planning around the world. So can you talk about your experiences of dealing with some of his clients that have benefited from vital planning and what difference it has made to them?
Vital planning for elevated living is a part of the TJS evolutionary method. It's a like customized, personalized program that it is really individualized, and it has an immense importance and immense effect towards individuals and towards groups as a whole. Tony has been performing and doing vital planning for elevating living one-to-one and one-to-group as well, one-to-many. Unfortunately, I didn't have that kind of. I didn't have an opportunity to attend one-to-many vital planning performance and to see the effect of the group after the vital planning. But as an individual being around Tony, I experienced the success of vital planning, the outcome of the personal outcome of vital planning on a few individuals, like Joel van der Molen, his very close business partner and very amazing creature, amazing person. His wife, his ex-wife, Timia van der Molen, who is extraordinary lady and a really amazing woman in every single way. Afterwards, Tami de Mirza. Tami de Mirza is one lady from USA, from America. So I had a chance to meet her in person while we were in Jamaica, and Tony was performing vital planning there for her. And I had a very close relationship. I managed to maintain some sort of close relationship with her within this period of time while she was having a vital planning with Tony. And her experience was, I will repeat myself, her experience was really cathartic. At the end of the day, at the end of the program, at the end of the whole training, she felt really like reborn, like rejuvenated. She was surprised from herself how much she wasn't aware of herself and how self-deluded she was of the insufficient self-worthiness that we have within ourselves, and sometimes we're not even aware and we're just keep going and putting a lot of stigmas on our mental structure, and instead of opening up and being a little bit more approachable towards the world, we are kind of building some kind of impenetrable wall, which is full of frustration, inhibitions, a lot of complexes. It's like a Freud offering you a good cocktail of multiple complexes. So that's what we're doing. Tony's program, actually, vital planning, it's like peeling bit by bit, one frustration, another complex, or whatever, some kind of, if you have some kind of hidden walls, or if we are not even aware of ourselves. So Tami de Mirza, at the end of vital planning, felt really surprised, really amazed, flabbergasted in every single way. She had a lot of insights. Tony managed to sharpen her hidden qualities and her hidden potential, which she thought it's really trivial and it's not gonna bring anything about if this talent comes up with her as a priority. So now she's embracing her talent, and by these hidden talents, right now she's monetizing her world, her personality, and she lives very happy.
That's wonderful.
And yeah, that's amazing. I had this experience. I met her in person. I saw the outcome. I saw the experience, and I would regardless, no money can buy this kind of experience. Maybe it's a bit lucrative when it comes to Tony's tuition and Tony's vital planning, but the experience, the transformation, the overall transformation out of this experience, out of this training,
Beyond
it's
measure.
something beyond, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. So that's why I strongly and firmly recommend TJ's Vital Planning for personal, for the person, for individuals, or for groups, for leaders, for people from different sorts of life, different professions as well.
Thank you.
No worries.
That's wonderful and really inspirational, and actually really inspirational to hear from all of the people who've spoken today about their very transformative, very powerful stories, and you know what Tony is able to do for them and his approach. So if you feel that you're in an organisation where you need to make some real change and some authentic and deep change and powerful change in your organisation, and you want to find out more, then you can get in touch with Tony and find or book a session with him at tonyjsalimi.com.